Anytime, thanks.
I'll start with tapping into the Royals fan inside of you. Your memories of Zack, and how nice does it feel to bring him back?
Oh, it's awesome. What day was that last week? And the way the sequence went with Minor and picking up Amir, I just think that was brilliant. We were willing to kind of maybe wait. Somebody asked me this morning, if you make an offer on a house when you already own one. But no, I think it's great with Zack, and the history there, and I think for the team, he'll make us better. He'll be an innings eater, in my view, but he'll also help our young guys. We just got an army of young pitchers, all showing some development, and from what I hear, they're pretty excited about having them around as well.
What kind of expectations do you have for your club as we sit here just
for
a
the
couple
club?
Of weeks away? Yeah.
Well, it's spring training, right? It's hope springs eternal. I think this is an optimistic time of year anyway. I feel like we're making progress. Since we came in here, I feel like we're trying to get better every day. I think we got better last week, but we'll see what we have. We've had 2 spring training games. We're getting a little bit of feedback here, but I think we got a core group of veterans. We got an army of young pitchers that are developing, and we got some new guys in that are going to help us.
Curious of what you learned about the Kansas City fan base this offseason with everything that was going on.
With the labor dispute, or
if that's the first thing that comes to mind, or whatever went on.
Well, that seems to be what people were talking about. But I think we got a great fan base, and I have been a fan for a long time. I started watching the Royals when I came to Kansas City in the 70s, and it was obviously a great time to be a Royals fan. And Sam and I were talking about this, when Ewing Kauffman, you think about all that Mr. Kauffman did to keep the team here, not just try to find a local buyer, couldn't do it, and he literally gave the team away and donated the team to the community to make sure that it stayed here. And then when Mr. Glass called us in 2019, in the spirit of Ewing Kauffman, he was passing that on. I think so when I think about Mr. Kauffman and what he did to make sure this, it was good that the team stayed here, but it was kind of bad from a competitive standpoint in that, we didn't have an engaged owner. We were run by a nonprofit. There wasn't any money, but then Dayton came back. Mr. Glass got Dayton, brought him in. We rebuilt the franchise, the farm system, the international business. So I'm just excited as a fan and can't wait for April 7th. So I wish it was March 31st. We're not going to get there, but certainly can't wait for April 7th.
John, what was just your greatest concern during the lockout?
I think I was. I'll just tell you, as a fan, I was frustrated, probably like our fans, right? It's part of the business. I think we got a deal done that I think is good for both parties, and I'm just kind of glad to kind of move on with that. But I think that uncertainty and that frustration, and then I think when we had to cancel some games, certainly that was concerning. I'm glad that we kind of figured it out when we did, and we're going to get the whole 162. I think that's important for our fans, for our club, and for the community.
Do you worry about bridging the gap between fans who kind of became disillusioned with baseball over this time?
That what?
Became, baseball fans who, said, I'm done with baseball, with the lockout.
Am I worried about that?
Worried about bridging that gap?
Always concerned. We're trying to reach out to our fans, stay connected. We try to stay connected during the, during that period of time. Always concerned about that. We're doing a lot of things, I think, in baseball to try to attract a younger, more diverse audience. I think you'll see some of those changes over the next couple of years. But certainly, always concerned about fans, want to earn their trust and want them to come, not just want them to come to the ballpark, but also kind of watch us when they're not at the ballpark as well.
So you look back at the last few years, I know when you first started, you said you wanted to learn the different types of departments, and there's obviously performance science, behavioral science, all of it. What has stood out most as you've learned the way this group, from baseball operations standpoint, operates?
I think what I think is, it's interesting. Before I came here, I think the perception was that maybe the Royals were more of a traditional organization, not making the changes to compete. I found something really quite different, and I think, we talk about JJ. JJ had a big impact on that, and I think in the role he's in, that's going to help us continue that. But What I like about this group is you have the traditional baseball guys, and then you have the scientists, whether it's data science, behavioral science, performance science, and they learn from each other, right? And the scouts like to say, I can what you have in the data, I see it with my eyes, but let's confirm what you see with your eyes, and then there are things that you don't see with your eyes. So I think what I like about this group is that they're, it's not parochial. They're learning from each other, and I think there's a lot of different things that we still want to do to make sure we can help our players develop.
You talked about the army of pitching, and you mentioned it from the get-go, but what have you thought of the progression that you have seen from those guys, and what are you looking forward to moving forward?
Our young pitchers?
Yeah.
Well, I think, look at how many guys we have with Keller's like the oldest guy, right, other than Zach now. We have this army of young pitchers, and I think some of them over the last couple of years have come up and developed some, took some knocks, which is part of the process, and we saw some of them develop last year, and we'll find out where they are. But I'm pretty excited about the group. Also think Zach can help us. I think he'll have an impact on these young pitchers as well.
What's the anticipation for Bobby Witt?
You mean?
Obviously as an owner, but obviously I'm sure you're in tune with the fan anticipation. What is it from
my
your
God,
perspective?
yeah, the fans are excited. I've always, when's he going to come up? I always say that's above my pay grade. Right? Somebody else makes that decision, but as a fan, I'm ready to see him.
Do you get asked that a lot?
About
when is he going to come up?
Sure, almost every time. Yeah, certainly. I think now there's some anticipation that day may be, fairly soon, but we'll see. Those are Dayton's and Mike's and JJ's decision, but no, as a fan, I can't wait to see him. It just seems like a rare talent and really great makeup, and I think the kind of player that we want to be a Kansas City Royal.
John, you said you feel like you guys got a good deal done as far as the bargaining agreement. There's some fans maybe in small markets that feel like there's not enough that balances it out for people like, in markets like Kansas City to be competitive on an annual basis. What do you think?
Well, I think we got a fair deal for the league and for the players. There's some things, and we set out. Our primary objectives were competitive balance, pay the players fairly, and then to the best that we could align our interests to grow the game together. And there's some things I like better about it than other parts of it. But when you think about competitive balance, the players respected some things that were important to us. They respected ultimately the 6-year path to free agency was important to us, and it's really important for a small market team. The 3 years to arbitration was important. The revenue sharing, if you remember initially, their request was to alter the revenue sharing, and that wouldn't have been good for competitive balance. So I look at those things as things that were important to us, and then revenue sharing will be. The CBT, that crept up on us a little bit, but with the new, there'll be some sharing above that I think will benefit teams like ours. It'll be a fund. I don't know I think that's certainly been out in the public. But there'll be a fund with excess CBT proceeds that will be divided by the Players Association and the league, and that some of that money will be available to small market teams that perform well both off the field and on the field. Investing in the team and then growing their revenue from a business perspective as well.
When it comes to, though, it still feels like a lot of those big market teams have just an advantage in terms of acquiring and retaining some of the top talent. Is there a way that you see maybe better to sort of bridge that gap?
You mean
in terms of like the teams just have more money, are able to acquire more talent?
I think from time to time you want to compete. I don't think the Kansas City Royals want to make a habit of trying to compete for those most expensive free agents. I think we need to kind of do what we've been trying to do: evaluate well, select well, develop well, and build a core nucleus. So when the time's right, we'll certainly be willing to spend some money to make sure we can compete at a high level.
And you were talking about, like with Zach, from an ownership standpoint, I'm just wondering how involved do you get when it comes to, when they're looking at bringing in a guy like Zach, or like last year with Salvy's extension, like, because rightly or wrongly, fans always say something gets done, well, maybe that was because of ownership. Like, how involved are you? What's your role in sort of those sorts of
I'm involved in, I have a great deal of confidence in our baseball people, but certainly involved when it involves investing money, allocating resources. Certainly was involved in the Zack discussions. Certainly last year involved in the Salvy deal and some other things as well. Signing Miners, signing Carlos, and then the Benintendi trade. Those are the kind of things that I think incrementally are going to make us better. All those things I just talked about, and then the things we've done here, and then the development of our young players.
John, last time we talked to you publicly, you mentioned the new ballpark, and where are you guys at in that process?
We've got a team working hard on that. There's been, and we've got, we're looking at multiple sites. We've engaged some really good firms to help us, look at that both in terms of sports architecture, economic impact studies, and things like that. One of the things, the way I look at it, Andy, is that we're one of only 25 cities in the United States with a Major League Baseball franchise. There's 4 cities have 2, and there's 1 in Canada. And so these are really, really valuable assets for a community. And so I'm interested. So why shouldn't we want to optimize the value of this asset on behalf of our community? I'm kind of interested in how the community wants to. So a lot of it's engagement, different parts of the community. We're doing the work around, real estate, sites and architecture and, financing and those types of things, trying to understand, the mix of public. I look at this as ultimately will be a public-private partnership, and we'll be big investors in that partnership. But anyway, got a really good team working on it, and excited to see, how that comes out, and also excited to see how the community, I get a lot of feedback that the K is great, and my first date with my wife was a Royals-Yankees game in the late 70s, right? And I was out there in 1980, 1985, 14, 15. So I love Kauffman Stadium. It's a great place to play baseball. And if you think about when Ewing Kauffman and Lamar Hunt got together to do that, whenever it was 50 years ago, it was a really innovative concept, right? I mean, most football teams were still, 3 yards in a cloud of dust was when they were in the infield, right? Trying to, but it was really innovative. 2 single sport venues right there, but now with baseball, and again, it's a great place to play, but we think we can do more. Baseball in higher density areas. If you look around the country, in Chicago, Atlanta just did a great project, and Atlanta, they won the World Series. That's helpful, right? But in Atlanta, I think they had 2.6 million in the ballpark and over 10 million visitors to the Battery. And so, you can do a lot for a community in terms of economic impact. And so that's what we're studying. And again, looking forward to getting the feedback that will help, drive those decisions.
How'd the first date go? Pretty well.
Pardon?
Your first date at the K.
Yeah, my wife's embarrassed when I tell that story. I think Lou Piniella might have been starting in left field for them. I can't remember exactly, but no, it went okay.
John,
We've been married for 40 years.
Yeah.
with that history, with that fandom that you've had for this organization during the lockout, Whit was on 610, and before signing off, had some very nice words to say about you. How important is it to you that your fans know that this isn't just a business for you?
No, I think it's not just a business for us. I mean, this is a passion, and I think the local ownership, we don't have it everywhere, but baseball believes that local ownership is better because it kind of motivates you to stretch, because you really do look at it as more than just a business. And the ownership group that we put together, I mean, it's really a remarkable group. I mean, all of them either live here now or grew up here and built a bit, or moved somewhere else, and this was a way for them to reconnect. So it's not just me. I mean, I've got a whole group of people that are fans, and some of them they went with their dads, went with their parents in 1980, 1985, and took their kids in 14, 15. and they've been fortunate enough to build successful businesses, to be leaders, and they're part of this group. So no, we're super excited about that.
Given the last few years, I mean, to be out here and just watch baseball, I know you were here last year, but I don't know, what goes through your head as you're out here just watching these guys perform?
I just think how lucky I am to be here. You know, how lucky I am to get to be on this field and watch these guys work out, and how lucky I am to be able to be fortunate enough to own a baseball team in my hometown and do that at this point in my career. I mean, I kind of I go back and forth between pinching myself, but also taking the responsibility, you know, very, very seriously for our players, for our fans, for our associates, but also for the community.
Johnny, what have you been hearing from fans about broadcast, matter of broadcast? And it's something we hear about almost as much as we hear about Bobby Witt, to be honest.
Yeah, in fact, Sam was bothering me all the time about that last year when he was on the other side. Couldn't shake him on it, but no, that's important. You know, I think it's important. You're talking about the streaming.
Yeah,
we're working on some things. I don't know, and you know, Sinclair's working on some things, and then long term, I think there's some really exciting solutions. I don't know how long it will take, but the whole landscape's changing, and you know, streaming, you know, and the way that young people consume the game and connect to teams and players. But we're doing some. You know, there's a lot of work being done at MLB right now with we got some really bright people on our media committee, and then we're kind of monitoring, you know, Sinclair and that whole situation. But we're committed to, you know, when you think about that, reach is more important than revenue for us, and that's in baseball. You know, I think a lot of what you heard during the CBA is that all we cared about was revenue. But reach is more important than revenue right now. The revenue will come if we connect with more fans over time, and so that's kind of the strategy that we're employing. But you know, how we get there, I think there's some turbulence, but certainly want to make it easy for people to connect and see our games. In fact, I was watching our game on a plane yesterday. I thought, this is a miracle. How could this be? You know, 35,000 feet above the earth, and I'm watching the game live on my phone.
Sounds like there is an acknowledgement that the game can be too provincial at times, where once your team's out, you know, the national appeal isn't there for maybe this next generation that doesn't get to see.
You're saying once your team's out,
out of the race.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. No, I think that's something with I know this has been asked, but I think the expanded postseason. I would have liked to see 14 for a market like ours. I think it would have you invest more. I think it's more entertaining when more markets are engaged in August and September. But yeah, baseball's baseball. I just read a funny article by Joe Posnanski, I think, when we went to the Universal DH, and he said, you know, only in baseball would you. Half your company has been doing this for 50 years. You would now implement it on the other half of it. But I think part of it is the charm of baseball. So Joe Kelly wrote a column as a player, said baseball's a book, not a sentence. And so I think there's some charm to that, but I think we need to change the game. I think we have to be open to different things. You know, look at the NFL. They're changing rules every offseason, right? It's all about what's more interesting to the fans, what's more entertaining. So I think you'll see. I think it's been written about the pitch clock, the bigger base. What was the other one?
Facing everybody, every team, starting next year.
I think so. What was the third one?
Shift.
Yeah, the shift regulation, right? So it's all about pace of play and length of play and action. You know, we might have talked about this, but the data says the three favorite plays in baseball are the triple, the double, and the stolen base from a fan perspective. And, you know, over time we've become a little bit of a league of home runs and strikeouts, in which I like the home run part of that every once in a while, but I think making the game more exciting for fans where there's more action. You think about a triple, right? When Monty bounces one off the wall, and it's just the whole place kind of lights up, right? And but but no, we're working on some things to make the game more interesting, and we want to attract a younger and more diverse audience over time. Obviously. Yeah.
Sounds like there is an acknowledgement then that you guys need to have a bigger reach with the TV streaming and things
No
like
question, no question. It's not clear how we get there. I think it's a complicated path, but the commitment's there, and I'm confident we'll get there. You know, it's also interesting. Young people sometimes connect more to a player than a team.
Right.
I mean, I loved players when I was a kid, but I was at a dinner with some young people, and I said, he said something about the Royals. I'm a big Royals fan. I said, "Oh, who's your favorite player?" He said, "Vlad Guerrero Jr." Okay.
Yeah.
So you might have a favorite team, but you have other players, and I think that some of that social media. How do you connect? How do you see what they're doing when they're off the field? That type of thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Swanee
thank
would
you.